the beautiful state capitol here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with a great group of super patriotic activists who are saying, hey, if you take up arms against our country, if you rebel, if you commit insurrection, you got to be accountable for it. You don't just get to skate. We're telling Washington, we're telling Harrisburg, we're telling the nation, we're telling cities, you've got to stand up for our freedoms, our votes. Hashtag our freedoms, our vote. Hashtag our freedoms, our vote. We're here with Our Revolution with Pennsylvania Indivisible. This is a great event organized by Public Citizen. We're going to hear from great speakers, and we're going to be doing some chanting. We thank you so much for being part of this awesome live stream that we're doing, or for the amazing activists. You can see them all behind me. And I'm going to ask maybe, Mike, if you could just move a little bit. We're going to bring Susan Roller up first. Susan, she put this together. I just drove up. She has been doing event after event. Nobody's fighting harder for democracy in the Keystone State. Heck, I'm going to say anywhere in the country. Susan, with Pennsylvania Indivisible, Susan Roller.
Hi, everybody.
You're good.
Very nice to be here, and we have all of our loyal activists out here. Rain, snow, sleet, and hail. We haven't had the snow yet, but it's coming. We are here. Our group, a lot of us, rally every Saturday from early September until the election. One of my proudest things I've been able to do is to help sign a complaint to the Ethics Committee of the House of Representatives, asking them to investigate Scott Perry for his insurrectionist behavior. And that's what we're here for. We don't, you're right. Yeah, we want to put, okay. Yes, we want to keep the insurrectionists to be held accountable. I'm going to introduce another speaker at this moment, Randall Hayes, and Randall is a member of March on Harrisburg, which is a ethics, a watchdog kind of group, and he has plenty to say, more than I do. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out today. Thank you to Our Revolution. Thank you to Public Citizen, very important group in Washington. It's that time of year again, everybody. It's that spooky Halloween season, and there might be ghouls and goblins roaming the streets in a couple of weeks, but a scarier prospect is the idea of a fourth term for the shame of Central Pennsylvania, Scott Perry, our Congressman Scott Perry. Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a real-life horror story here. You don't get much worse than Scott Perry, Freedom Caucus member, ultra-conservative, and as he demonstrated on January 6th, and the days leading up to January 6th, not upholding his oath to the Constitution that he swore to defend and protect as a member of the House of Representatives of the United States. So we have an election coming up in just about 3 weeks here, and I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Excellent, so now we're nice and warmed up. I wanted to share some thoughts about the behavior of our unfortunate congressman. And, I still remember January 6th being glued to that television and the sights and sounds and the disbelief that I had at what was taking place in Washington, D.C. right before my eyes. But what was almost as astounding was, after all the violence, after all the mayhem, after the carnage, and after the House of Representatives reconvened, that Scott Perry, the man who is supposed to represent this city and the people in this area, had the gall to stand up before the speaker and announce that he, quote, sadly but resolutely, unquote, needed to object to the counting of votes for this state. Absolutely unbelievable. But he wasn't the only one. Other members of his party, 147 in total, also objected to the fair and free election that we had in 2020. Scott Perry, besides these actions on January 6th, I've never seen him. I've lived in the city for 8 years. And what has he done for us lately? Truly. I can't even say he's done any breakfasts or kind of showcase things just to show he's around. He's just not around. I've never seen him in Harrisburg. I've never heard of him visiting. I've never heard of any rallies. What have you done for us lately, Scott Perry?
Invisible man.
What Scott Perry and members of his party are seeking is a legal revolution. And unfortunately, they've already come a long way to success with their legal revolution. It began years ago. Gerrymandering is real. We live in a state that has been gerrymandered. We live in a country that has been gerrymandered. The courts have been packed. The Supreme Court is a great example of this. And it's been ruled almost as an ineffectual check now on the influence of these ultra-conservatives, these extremists. People like Scott Perry and Doug Mastriano, who was also there, of course, on January 6th, supporting this rebellion, they have no solutions. They claim that they have all the answers, but what do they offer? What policies do they have? They don't have solutions.
They just say no.
They say no. They support cuts to funding and programs and government spending, but what is their solution? They say, well, let's leave it to the free market. But the free market has demonstrated an inability to handle the needs of the people. And if you want a very local example, take a look at the parking over there on the street. The city of Harrisburg sold their parking authority to a private company. And I assure you that private company, which is not based in Pennsylvania, let alone Harrisburg, is not concerned with safe and accessible parking and regulations on handicap parking and things. They are concerned with profits to the point where it's now $4 an hour to pay for parking. But that's just one example. We can talk about insurance in this country where people are denied for life-saving treatments. We can talk about UPMC closing hospitals in the middle of a pandemic. We can talk about private schools where your children's education are now on the books and able to be made a buck off of. We can talk about realtors associations and landlords, which have resulted in less housing and hundreds of thousands of homeless people in the United States. In 2022, we have a homeless problem. Men like Scott Perry, Doug Mastriano, and their extremists in their party exploit their supporters with fantasies and stories about a big lie. The big lie that the election was stolen. But this has been thoroughly disproved. All of the court actions that are brought in this state and around the country have all been thrown out. It has been demonstrated beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond any doubt, that we had a fair and free election in 2020. They continue to repeat this big lie, the idea that the election was stolen. And unfortunately, a lot of people seem to agree with them. They tell stories about American exceptionalism, and they tell stories about white supremacy in order to exploit the weaknesses and the insecurities of their supporters, when in fact we all know that we don't have great health care in this country. We have a crumbling infrastructure. They want us to turn on our neighbors. The GOP, these extremists like Scott Perry and Doug Mastriano, they want us to turn on our neighbors, and they create boogeymen like trans people coming after your rights and people of different races, black and brown people, coming to take away white people's rights. They create these they create boogeymen in order to turn us on each other and turn neighbor against neighbor. And unfortunately, it's working for a lot of people. At the end of the day, these people like Scott Perry and Doug Mastriano and the extremists in the GOP, they serve the 1%. They serve the wealthy 1%, and that is the true enemy of the people. It is not your neighbors, it is not trans people, it is not people of color. Briefly, I was reading The Atlantic and an article by Christopher Browning, and he taught us some lessons that we can learn from the Weimar Republic before the Nazis ascended. We have a burgeoning fascist party in this country, and I know that term gets thrown around a lot. So when I say fascist, I just want to define it briefly. I'm not talking about death camps. I'm not talking about extermination campaigns. I'm talking about fascism as defined by Professor Liam O'Mara. And it is characterized by several traits, including a return to traditional values and a time of lost glory, It refers to nationalism and hyper-nationalism. It refers to the use of conspiracy theories and the belief in conspiracy theories, such as the big lie that is continued to be promoted by people like Scott Perry and Doug Mastriano. Fascism relies on the use of charisma and a charismatic leader. And I think we all know who we're talking about as far as a charismatic leader who must be obeyed and bowed down to by people in this extreme GOP party. Fascism relies on the merger of state and corporate interests. Fascism relies on anti-union practices, and they do not support labor rights and the right to unionize. Fascism relies on populism and this appeal to the forgotten man and a return to a time of glory. And finally, fascism relies on misogyny. And so we have a creep towards fascism in this country, and the lessons that we can learn from Weimar Republic before the Nazis ascended are threefold. One, you cannot allow a big lie to propagate, which has been happening in this country on one side as far as the GOP, and in parts of our media, which refuses to properly cover the evidence of a free and fair election. The Weimar Republic teaches us that you cannot abstain, you cannot refrain from giving the proper and appropriate consequences to violent insurrection. And that's exactly what happened in January 2021. There was a violent insurrection orchestrated by Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and we have failed to deliver proper and appropriate consequences. Right. The third lesson that we can learn from the Weimar Republic in Germany before the Nazis ascended is that there cannot be an alliance between traditional conservatives and the fascist element. Amen. And so we're doing okay in some of these areas, but we have room for improvement in others. Because the people in Washington, D.C., they have much more in common with each other than they have with any of us. The Republicans and the Democrats have more in common with their millionaire and billionaire associates than they have with the 99%. They are perfectly happy with infighting. They're perfectly happy with us blaming each other. They're okay with war raging on in Ukraine and profits and prices climbing. Big oil. And so, while Scott Perry is a villain, while Doug Mastriano is dangerous, they are not the true enemy. We do not have a Hitler on the rise in this country. We have instead a corporate takeover, which has taken control of Washington, D.C. decades ago. We have true enemies like tax cheats and people who exploit labor. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Howard Schultz, tax cheats, exploiters. We have bankers like Jamie Dimon who fund war profiteers. We have money managers like Pennsylvania's own Jeffrey Yass, billionaires. We have, and perhaps the most villainous, the war profiteers, David Rubenstein, CEOs and board members from Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. And so we have an opportunity in this election to make some progress. We also have the people. Corporate control has been solidified in Washington, but we have the people. We have the vast majority. Congress is the answer, but we must wrest it back from corporate control. And we have an opportunity to do that this November by electing more progressive candidates who speak for the 99% and who are not beholden to corporate interests. And so we need people like Shemaine Daniels, we need people like Bob Casey, and we need people like John Fetterman and Josh Shapiro to say loud and clear that people like Donald Trump, Scott Perry, Doug Mastriano, their behavior is unacceptable, it is treasonous, and we will no longer be beholden to corporate interests of the 1%, and we will start defending the needs of working class Americans. In order for this to happen, however, we can't just vote. We need to reawaken the people. We need a reawakening of the populace in this country and in the state and in the city. I work with March on Harrisburg. We are a statewide group, and I'm doing what I can to do this reawakening and engage people. The people behind me, they are involved with groups. They're involved with the New Pennsylvania Project, Pennsylvania Indivisible, Tuesdays with Toomey, their local parties, others. And so find your route, find what works best for you, stay involved, awaken your neighbors, as our revolution has said before, and it's more true now than ever, elections end, movements endure. Thank you.
Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
All right, what an amazing speech by Randall Hayes. And I loved that because it's not just a focus on one party. We're not just pointing fingers and saying you. We're also saying we. Our party, the party that we're supporting, has got to do better. If it doesn't fight for Main Street, not Wall Street, if it doesn't fight for working people instead of bosses, then we will find ourselves with more insurrections, more takeovers, more coups. And as Randall said, and I agree with him, there is not a Hitler on the horizon, but there could well be one if the party that is perhaps arguably, yes, the lesser of the two evils, doesn't stop being evil, then things are going to get a lot more evil. And they're pretty darn awful right now for tens of millions or hundreds of millions of us. I want to introduce a great friend I've made over the past months, a Harrisburg activist. She's with Cumberland Valley Rising. Anna Dralios. Anna, come on up here.
All right, everyone. People, power. When I say people, you say power. People. Power. People. Power. People. Power. People. Power. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming here on this cold day. Winter is starting. Reynold, wonderful speech. My God, he gave us a whole history of American politics. Right now, though, what we are dealing with is insurrectionists who are trying to control us. They're trying to win again in the November elections through lies. And we cannot allow that to happen again. People like that should never, ever, ever hold office again. So what do we do in November? What do we do in November? We are going to vote those insurrectionists, those traitors out. Get them out of office. All right. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out.
Vote them out.
Mastriano.
Out.
Perry.
Out.
All those is insurrectionists.
Out.
All right, we got to get them out because our democracy is in peril right now. And we have to fight. And the only way we can fight is through our votes. I have lived in communist country and I have lived under a fascist regime. I know what it's like not to be able to vote. I know what it's like not to be able to practice the religion that you choose, and not like Mastriano, who thinks that Christianity is the only religion that's appropriate. Boo! Boo! So when I say people, you say power. People.
Power.
People.
Power.
People.
Power.
All right, everyone, let's get out there and vote in November. Vote them out.
How great is Anna Dralios? Listen, I love coming to Harrisburg. I said I'm going to Harrisburg when we learned about the public citizen events, the January 6th Justice rallies, and this is what this is. It's a rally for January 6th Justice. I'm with Our Revolution, but it is a public citizen coalition put together with great other group organizations. We're going to meet Mike Hirsch from PDA in just 1 second, but also just again want to give shout outs to PA Indivisible with Susan Roller, who spoke, with Cumberland Valley Rising, Anna Dralios. Now let me introduce Mike Hirsch. He is with Progressive Democrats of America, and those are the Democrats we like.
Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Pennsylvania, for such a warm welcome on a cold day. Let's hear for Pennsylvania. The state of Benjamin Franklin believes in democracy. Let me hear a woohoo for democracy. That's right. That's right. We have a Liberty Bell here in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania means so much. The birthplace of American religious freedom, founded by Quakers, a proud tradition that's been sullied by people who have sat in the Congress and then rose up against Congress with violence, supporting a violent insurrection. This is not about parties. This is about basic human decency. This is about basic respect for democracy itself. It's about integrity. Thank you.
USA.
This is where we have people who call themselves patriots, but take up arms against the United States. If that's what their dictionary calls a patriot, they need a new dictionary, and it's very, very upsetting to me. I've worked on the Capitol. I've worked to try to convince Republicans and Democrats and independents alike to do things like pass Medicare for all for health care justice, to end homelessness, a lot of other issues. And I've gotten a good hearing from Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike. This is not a partisan issue. This is about whether we, the people, will have our voices heard, or whether our voice and our vote will be torn up and thrown in the garbage by a bunch of radical, MAGA, cult of personality extremists. This is not about party. And let me tell you a little bit about right and wrong here, and who's on the right and who's on the wrong. There were a whole bunch of judges appointed by Donald Trump who said he was wrong. Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs in the regular season. Donald Trump had 62 judges say he was wrong. They're not the same. They are not the same. One's a home run hitter, one is something that I don't want to say, but I think we can all fill in the blank on what...
Rhymes with hitter, Mike?
It's one letter off, but very, very much close in the batter's box.
Hitter.
That's right. He's not a pull hitter. He's something very close to that. So let me just say, when I watched the outrageous, disgusting, violent attack on our duly elected Congress, overturning the admittedly biased and racist Electoral College, which still threw out Trump, when I saw a mob take up arms and choke policemen and policewomen and tear down barricades and break windows and do unspeakable things in the halls of Congress, I was terrified and outraged. I never thought that I would see this happening in these United States of America. And then for the perpetrators of these violent crimes, this premeditated conspiracy to overrule the voters, to short-circuit the peaceful transfer of power, I thought to myself, is this a Twilight Zone episode? Is this some kind of dystopian science fiction movie? What is happening here? And to have those criminals, those insurrectionists, call themselves patriots. And now the same people who said the election was biased and was fraudulent, who, by the way, were elected in that same election, now they're back again saying, elect us. They respect the voters now. They didn't on January 6th. So let's show them the same respect that they showed our democracy by voting against every single insurrectionist. You have to choose a side. They chose their side. Now it's time to hold them accountable. Thank you very much.
All right, Mike Hirsch from Progressive Democrats. I always say professional because a lot of them are professionals. Vote them out. Vote them out.
Vote them out! Vote them out!
All right, we're starting to wind down. We've got two more featured speakers. Then we're going to go to some other folks who are here who have a few important words to say. I want to go now to David Wenger with the 10th Congressional District Network. that is, of course, the district here in Harrisburg. Scott Perry's your representative.
Thanks, Al. Well, Randall knocked it out of the park. I mean, he said everything really that needs to be heard, but about insurrectionists. But I'm concerned also about the people who support insurrectionists.
Amen.
We have hundreds of people in this building right here. They're taking the process for constitutional amendments, and weaponizing it, and at the risk of our ability to vote. So people need to check with all of their legislators, their representatives. Did you speak out? Did you speak out against the big lie? And you're going to find a lot of people who didn't. And anybody who didn't speak out against the big lie is complicit. They need to go.
They need to go. Vote them out. Vote them out.
Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Well, as I think everybody here knows, and most people in this country, I think, know that democracy is at risk. We're in a serious situation here. And those who don't speak the truth, they need to be called out. So we need to start naming names. Call them out. Call them out. Call them out.
Scott Perry.
Scott Perry's one. Doug Mastriano's another. But there's hundreds in that building. Yeah. So, but people need to name names. Put names, letters to the editor, to your neighbors. They need to be mentioned in specific names given for who are supporting the big lie and damaging our democracy. I just have two quick quotes that I think speak to our time right now. It's a famous quote that's often misattributed, but the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And we're doing something, but we need to also engage our neighbors, our friends, our families, and they can't be sitting on their butts at home. They need to be out telling people to vote. The other thing I want to do a quick quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was murdered by the Nazis. If I sit next to a madman as he drives his car into a group of innocent bystanders, I can't, as a Christian, in his case, simply wait for the catastrophe, then comfort the wounded and bury the dead. I must try to wrestle the steering wheel out of the hands of the driver. So we need to wrestle the hands of the steering wheel away from these MAGA extremists and take our country back.
David, thank you so much. Take it back.
Take it back. Take it back. Take it back.
All right, this is great. We could go all day, but we don't have all day. I want to bring our final speaker up, Rand Tenner, and then we are going to go to a couple folks in the audience. Oh, Rand is not going to speak. All right, I want to bring Laura up. Laura and I spoke yesterday. Maybe come around where Susan is. Just want to give Laura a few moments, and then we're going to hear from our resident trader.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me this platform because my name is Laura Quick. I am a political and labor activist, and I also happen to be a candidate for the State House of Representatives. Vote me in! And I don't happen to just be a candidate, but my opponent happens to be, one, an election denier. Boo! And you may have heard about him from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Denver Post, and the Philadelphia Inquirer, because he was the legislator who reached out to John Eastman to create a slate of fake electors to send to Washington, D.C.
Lock him up.
Lock him up! Lock him up! Okay, so here we go. His name is Russ Diamond. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Russ Diamond's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Russ Diamond has got to go.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Russ Diamond has got to go.
And just to sweeten the pot a little bit is I had a debate with him just this morning, and his very first question was to attack the Democrats on how they're responsible for inflation, and there's nothing that the General Assembly can do. Meanwhile, there are 3 bills sitting in the State House right now for a gas tax holiday. It is paid for because we have a $7 billion surplus in the budget. It will cost $950 million to give all Pennsylvanians a gas tax holiday. Oh, but they don't have the money to do it. And guess what? They had the money to give themselves a raise last November, $5,000, and they'll have enough money to give themselves a raise in March of $6,000. They're not here for the people. They're not working for the people. And I also want to talk about a little bit on my labor activist, if I could. I was out at a rally. I was out at the I'm a card-carrying Teamster member. Woo! I was out at the Teamster Women's Conference in Seattle, and right around the corner from where we were having our conference was Amazon headquarters. We had 2 tractor trailers leading us down the street. We took up all 1,200 of us, took to the streets, and we went right in front of the Amazon corporate offices, and I'm going to lead you in my favorite chant, okay? Fee, fi, fo, fum, Bezos is a fucking bum. Ready? Fee, fi, fo, fum, Bezos is a fucking bum. Fee, fi, fo, fum, Bezos is a fucking bum. We have to stand strong with labor. We had a loss last night. The Amazon, they didn't get their union. You got to stay strong with the unions because the unions are where the power is. Thank you.
That's so great, Laura Quick.
Union strong! Union strong! Union strong!
You know, the Nazis went after the unions. So if we're going to stop fascism, we have to stop the war on unions because they are the true bolster of democracy. And Democrats have not really grasped that lesson. Yes, the PRO Act. So we're just about, I think we got one more person who's going to step up to the mic. And we were going after one multi-billionaire. He's a 100-billionaire who owns Amazon, another tech billionaire. This is on his platform. Unfortunately, we got to put it somewhere. So if you see us on Facebook, we're definitely there. So hopefully you'll find us also on YouTube and also on Twitter, where I guess another billionaire is trying to make that his toy. We got to take our tech back too. That's one more area where our democracy is in peril. Let's get Benedict up here real quick to take us as our final speaker.
Yes, 'tis I, Benedict McDonald. Why does everybody have their britches all in a knot over this January 6th thing? My goodness, it's a kerfluffle, a tempest in a teapot. For me, I'm widely considered the greatest traitor in American history. On the level, I was compared on the level of Judas Iscariot back in the day. But this January 6th, I just see it as a culmination of the plan that I set forth some 250 years ago when I tried to sell the plans to West Point to the British.
Yay for the British.
And I see their playbook. They're following my playbook. This Mastriano and Perry, yes,
Follow the redcoats.
They wrapped themselves in patriotism and the flag. They served in the military. Although not with much distinction, for I too, ex-Benedict MacDonald, served in the military. I was the hero of the Battle of Ticonderoga. I was celebrated throughout the 13 colonies. But I too had my weaknesses, and I became disgruntled. So I sold out for money to support my wife's extravagant lifestyle. And I have no qualms about that. Yes. So these people parrot in Mastriano, yes, ex-Benedict MacDonald says they should be celebrated because they are a continuation of the process that I had to try to nip this nascent democracy in the bud. And now 250 years later, these insurrectionists, as you call them, these MAGA hordes, this Donald Trump, yes, they all, they are following my plan perfectly. It is so good after 250 years to no longer be the greatest traitor in American history. And as a great man who came after me once said, I believe his name was Samuel Clemens, some of you may know him as Mark Twain. He said that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And I agree with that.
Thank you, ex-Benedict MacDonald. All right, we're just getting towards the end, but Susan, we end as we began. Let's go back to Pennsylvania Indivisible. Susan Rollins.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to make sure all of you know we have one of our rallies this coming Saturday at the Broad Street Market, noon to 1. We come down and we too have some American heroes to show you. We have George Washington, Lady Liberty, Abraham Lincoln, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So join us next Saturday.
All right here in downtown Harrisburg, and reach out to Susan. And if you can't find Susan, you all should know me because I've sent about 10 million emails and texts and everything else. So you can reach out to me. I'll connect you to Susan. And let's end with our insurrectionist chant. Hey, hey,
ho, ho, insurrectionists got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, insurrectionists got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, insurrectionists got to go.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great afternoon. And that's going to do it from Harrisburg, PA.